It's time to gather round, get all the kids in the neighborhood. Yeah! We'll sit in circles and clap our hands and clap, clap, clap. We'll jump up and down and scream. Yeah! It's the serial killer story hour, and it's live with Pete Altieri. That's the bald guy from Murder Metal Mayhem. Come on, kids, scream out! Serial killer story hour, yeah! Serial killer story hour, yeah, yeah! How about one more time with some balls, kids? Yeah. Serial killer story hour, yeah! Horns high, high, high.
What is up, everybody? Trying out some new stuff here, and hope you like what you see with this new platform I'm using called Riverside. I mentioned that before on Saturday, but playing around with some of the new bells and whistles I can do here with this. So hopefully that intro, everything seemed like it went good on this end, but hopefully everything goes really well tonight. Anxious to get it started. So I am trying to see the chat here. I don't know why I can't see the chat. Let's see here. Yeah, for some reason I can't see the chat. That's strange, because I could see it on Saturday. Maybe it takes a second to catch up. I'm not sure. But we're going to do this tonight, talking some serial killer story hour with you. And it should be an interesting one because this guy and his wife, David and Catherine Birnie, are, wow, really, really heinous couple. Some of the stuff that they were doing. And it's going to be a disturbing one for some of you guys, I'm sure, because this is something that most people kind of cringe when they hear it. I'm trying to see what's going on here. Okay. Yeah, sorry guys. I'm just trying to make sure everything is going. Okay, now I see the chat. I didn't want to do this without being able to talk to you guys, so sorry about that. So right now I'm looking at Donna Lembo, but I know there's more of you because I was watching it on YouTube. But again, a little hiccup here with that, but we'll keep it going. So good to see you guys. I did want to let you know, because I know a lot of you ask about stuff going on with me with my medical stuff, but I was supposed to have surgery Wednesday, next Wednesday, which is my birthday, and nice birthday present. But they wound up having to delay it. I had some labs drawn, and they just made some decisions based on, being able to heal from the surgery, which is going to be significant for healing. So I'm, as much as I wanted the surgery to get it over with, I'm just, they're making the right decision, I'm sure, based on, their medical competence, and the VA and the civilian that's doing the surgery were both kind of in concert there. So anyway, so I won't be laid up next week. I'll be here doing the usual. So I will see you guys as planned for next week. I was kind of uncertain how it was going to go, but I planned on doing the, the live, even if I did it from the hospital on Saturday of next week. But Teresa said hi on my TV, but the live isn't playing. Oh, the live isn't playing. Yeah, I noticed that. Why is that? That doesn't make any sense. It says waiting for Murder Metal Mayhem, but I don't know what he's waiting for. Sorry here, guys. Yeah, I'm seeing you guys on this, but this is through YouTube through Riverside. Um, picture.
Yeah, that's weird. There's two of them.
There's two of them.
Yeah, one says Serial Killer Story Hour, and one says Welcome to our live show.
Let's see here. Apologize for this, guys. Let me see if I can figure out how to get the link to the. Well, guys, I apologize for this problem here. I don't know what's going on. I don't understand why it's got me as two different. There's a live going on right now. That is apparently where it thinks I'm supposed to be doing this, but I set up my live on Saturday the same way, so I don't know. Hang on a second. If I could get a link to this live, I can't seem to find it when I look for it on my laptop. So I'm trying to figure out how to get that link, but when I click on my lives, it doesn't show it. It doesn't make any sense. Like I said, using new stuff. I don't want to make this a knock on Riverside because they've been great, but this is weird. And I don't know how to fix it. Where would that be? Just hang on a second, guys. All right, let me try something. Okay. I see it on here. I don't know what to do.
Okay, the
I put a link in the chat.
yeah, but you put it in the link to this chat.
I'm putting it in multiple places. I don't know what else to do. Yeah. Okay, they say they see me now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, not the best way I want to roll out alive. All right. Donna says it's working. That's good. So, definitely sorry for the mix up. Using new software, or new platform, new website, whatever you want to call it, is is great when it works, but of course when it doesn't, and I'm not sure what to make of that because that was not how Saturday went. Saturday went fine, but anyway, we're here. Serial Killer Story Hour. A little late start. I apologize again, but we could make it work. Talking about David and Catherine Birnie from Perth, Western Australia. Definitely a disturbing case, to say the least. Really almost like a spree killing, even though it was in one location, which is their house, but over a 5 week period, 4 victims. And so, okay, just see the spinning thing, but okay. I'm looking at the chat. So, in an effort to save some time, I'm not going to go through all the chat. I appreciate everybody that's been here, been incredibly patient waiting through this for me. But all right, well, let's get to it. And like always, if you got a comment or something you want me to address after I'm done talking about these two, then we can bat it around. That's what this is all about, is getting your feedback on this case. If there's any time, and I'll go, a little bit over the time to make up for the lost time. So we'll go to 8:15 my time if we have to, because like I said, I want to give you guys the hour. So if you got other stuff you want to talk about, I mean, that Nancy Guthrie case is pretty fascinating. Thinking about doing a video on that one tomorrow, but my mom called me and said you got to do a video on it, because she's been following it, and so it's pretty interesting, especially now with the pictures. So I got some ideas on that one, but all right, well, let's go to Australia. Beautiful country. I hope one day I go there to visit. It looks like an absolutely beautiful place. And Western Australia, I mean, Perth, I mean, really, really nice. So that's where we're going. So in our minds, most of us are in cold weather this time of year. So we're putting in our minds that we're over there in Perth, chilling on the beach, listening to me drone on about these two. But we got drinks. We're, got the umbrellas out. We're all good. Okay. So we're doing one of the most infamous cases, though, out of Australia, David and Catherine Birnie. They also refer to this as the Morehouse murders in Perth, because Morehouse was the street that they lived on. So the Morehouse murders, kind of a cool name. I know that we always talked about that on the podcast, is when they have interesting names for, these different serial killers and stuff, those seem to be the ones that get the better traction. You know what I mean? And when they're not as interesting, I don't think it's kind of dumb, but people definitely get hooked on an interesting name, an interesting name. So, but this is a month-long spree. Like I said, 5 weeks, 4 murdered women, one survivor though. She's amazing. That brings it all crashing down. And it's disturbing. So, like I said, if that's not your thing, I got to keep it PG-13. However, it's violent and brutal, and so if that's not your thing, you can bow out. That's up to you. So we'll start with David because we're doing a couple killer. I've done this many times on the podcast. I don't believe. Well, we did. Didn't we do Fred and Rose West? I'd have to look. But we've done a lot of these on the podcast. We've done Bernie, and so I remember covering this one because it was one I didn't know a lot about. So I'd be curious in the comments, where you guys were you guys aware of this couple here? Because when the couple killers, like Ken and Barbie in Canada, but probably do that one eventually. But those, when they do it in a duo like that, it makes it deadly because the female can entice the victim into thinking that it's cool. Hey, you need a ride. If it's a guy, less apt to get in a car. But with a couple, you're pretty, guard is low, and that's what they did. So David's born in 1951 in a very chaotic, abusive environment. Now, how many times have we been talking about that? I mean, geez, and this, no different here. Same kind of stuff. Mother was an alcoholic, really, really bad. Neglected the kids. David, was getting into criminal behavior as a little kid, burglarizing, doing some antisocial behavior. He was kind of withdrawn. He was small, and his parents didn't give a crap about him. His dad worked like crazy, so he hardly saw his dad because his dad worked like two jobs to pay the bills, and they were still, it was rough. So he had a rough childhood. But that antisocial behavior grows into animal cruelty, which we've heard before with serial killers, voyeurism, also seen quite a bit of that, and just petty theft. That's how it starts, right? So then he ends up dropping out of school, bouncing between jobs, odd jobs, and then he starts escalating into more serious crimes like break ins, car theft, and SA assaults. So definitely a bad dude. Okay. So Catherine was Catherine Harrison originally, and interestingly enough, these two were childhood friends from a very young age, and then in their teen years they kind of went their separate ways, and then eventually came back together again and got married. Kind of interesting story. If they weren't such awful human beings, it would be a very nice story, but they're awful human beings. She was born in 51, also in Perth. Childhood, very unstable, abandonment, placed in foster care for far, long stretches in that system, which is, got to be a rough way to be raised. And like I said, she met David when they were young, and she was infatuated with him right away. And her foster parents had tried to separate them, but of course, what happened? She rebelled, and eventually she marries another guy named Donald McLaughlin. And the marriage, though, strained. They had like six kids, though, which is kind of wild. But just was kind of a loveless type marriage. So then later on, like I said, David marries this woman named Carrie, and if you watch some of the docs on YouTube, they interview her. It's pretty interesting to get her perspective because apparently he wasn't doing anything like this when he was with her. But they did have children. I thought it was a couple of kids. So Catherine's marriage is falling apart. She reconnects with David in the early 80s. And then David leaves his wife, Carrie, and moves in with Catherine, or Catherine moves in with him. So they become very intense, very codependent, and definitely violent in the bedroom. Very violent. They developed a shared fantasy that involved, domination, control, and even kidnapping. So, again, very disturbing. And he's already been doing this kind of stuff, on his own. Catherine later admitted that she would do anything to keep David's approval. I mean, I don't know. I mean, looking at this dude, I don't even get it. I should have done that earlier. Let me do that now before I forget. Hopefully, I don't screw something up. Probably should just shut my mouth. Let me see. I got a picture of him in case you didn't see it on the thumbnail. So yeah, that's what they look like. Um, you know, but I'm not seeing this guy as like, a movie star type individual where anybody would want to be, infatuated with this guy, but I guess, there's somebody for everybody, right? So I don't know. I don't know, but it's just kind of funny. I don't see the guy as like a movie star there, but to her, I guess he was. All right, so that's what they look like. I should have done that earlier. And so by 86, the couple's living at 3 Morehouse Street in Willigee. I love these Australian town names. One of my favorite things about doing these episodes is these awesome town names, but Willigee, that's a cool town name. They began planning abductions, rehearsing scenarios. I mean, man, they're like taking this seriously and preparing restraints. I mean, they are like really getting geared up for this. It's kind of strange, right? David told Catherine they needed to prove their love to each other through shared acts of violence. Wow. This poor woman just follows him no matter what, but man. So here we go with the crime spree, again known as the Morehouse murders. First victim, Mary Nielsen, would be October 6th of 86. She's a 22-year-old student. This is so just awful, but they lure her to the house by offering to sell her some really cheap car tires. So she shows up to the house. They invite her inside. As soon as they shut the door behind her, they're attacking her. I mean, it's brutal. And she's abducted, assaulted, repeatedly strangled, and then they end up burying her in a shallow grave in the bushland. So just vicious, right? Just vicious. And I don't remember how long she endured all this, but some of them went days, and then others were just, a few hours. And then the next victim would be October 20th, so 14 days later, Susanna Candy, 15 years old. I mean, absolutely horrendous. She's forced to write letters to her family. We've heard this one before. I think Dean Coral did this kind of stuff, the Candyman. But forced to write letters to her family claiming she'd run away. Yeah, the Kansas City Ripper, I think that guy also had the victims write letters. So that's a common thing. That told them that she ran away. I think that they told her she went to Queensland with her friend, run away. And, Catherine insisted, though, on being the one to kill her to prove her loyalty. So she did that. Strangled her with a nylon. And then victim 3 would be November 1st. So about, 12 or so days later, 31-year-old airline hostess. David became infatuated with her and wanted to keep her alive longer. But of course, Catherine grows jealous and forced him to end her life. And most of these are buried out in that same area of the bushland. He wasn't getting creative with it. They were shallow graves. And they just, dumped them out there where he figured nobody would go. And then victim 4, Denise Brown, she's 21 years old. And same MO as before. But this is November 5th, so just 4 days later. I mean, they're just getting really bold with one after the other, pretty much. 21-year-old again, assaulted, stabbed, buried in a shallow grave. There were a couple that were hitchhikers. There was the girl with the tires. That was the first one. Then there were a couple of hitchhikers, if not all the rest, because that's how they did it. It was very similar, and we'll do this one eventually, to the Moors murderers there in the UK. Also, they were boyfriend girlfriend, but he would ride behind on like a motorcycle, and she drove the car. So she would stop and ask if, hey, do you need a ride? And they saw just a female. They weren't worried, but he was behind on a motorcycle. And then they get out in the country, and he would get in the car with them, and then bad things were happening. So, interesting case. It's so cool when you study true crime and go into it as much as I have. It's so interesting, I think, how the cases intertwine. And sometimes I see in the comments somebody saying, "Oh, you're talking about the Idaho 4." Then I listen to you talking about OJ, and it's like, well, if that's how I got to explain a point, I was trying to explain how bloody the OJ Simpson scene at Nicole's place differed from what we were seeing in Idaho 4 for the most part. There's some gore in there, but not nearly what that one was. And also I got into the Manson stuff. So I don't see anything wrong with bringing up other cases. And hopefully you guys find that interesting and like to hear other stuff, because you might hear something you never knew about and give you something else to watch. All right. So now we're at the fifth victim. This one is the good one. So all these other ones, terrible endings. Unfortunately, all ended the same. But now we got Kate Moore, age 17. So she's a badass. She gets abducted November 10th. So the last one was November 5th. So again, they're really, really racking these up, getting cocky. She's tied up, assaulted repeatedly. Now, while the Birnies slept, she manages to free her hands and climb out of a window. And I remember reading about this when I was doing my research, and the documentaries cover it well too, of her getting out of there. There's a movie based on this. I cannot remember the name. Maybe I'll type it in here and see what that is. Give me a sec. I'll see what the answer is. Yeah, it's Hounds of Love. I've seen it. It says it's loosely following the case, but it's good. It's good. I thought it was worth watching. So Hounds of Love. It's well done. So yeah, she climbs out the window, running barefoot down the street, banging on doors. Very similar to the toy box murders down there in New Mexico, until somebody finally lets her in, and she immediately contacts the police, gives a very detailed description of the house, the couple, the layout, and the escape ends the spree. So they close in. They arrive, the cops, at Morehouse Street within hours. Of course, in Australia, it's just like here in the US. They come packing and ready to rock, and they took them down very easily. David, of course, tried to deny everything at first, but Catherine cracked quickly, and so she didn't she didn't hold back, but he tried to deny everything at first. Eventually, though, he also confessed to all four murders and the abduction of Kate Moore, or Moyer, I don't know how you pronounce that. He reportedly told police it was just something we had to do. I mean, my God, what the heck? But all that preparation, I don't think I've ever seen something so intense as that. The trial, both pled guilty. Extremely rare, it says, in serial killer cases. I think normally they try to, what else you got to lose kind of thing, and just go all the way. you're going to get life anyway, so what does it matter, is maybe the thought process. But each of them end up getting 4 consecutive life sentences with no parole. Now, I thought I saw something in a doc I watched where she went up for parole but just kept getting refused. But in another place, I see it as they weren't offered parole. So I'm not sure which is true. None, whatever. She's not going anywhere. And the judge, he said the crimes were beyond comprehension. Pretty brutal stuff. So David ends up going to Casuar, Casuarina prison. Interesting name. He attempts to off himself multiple times, but in 2005 he succeeds. They find him hanging in his cell. He did not leave any kind of note or anything. And then Catherine, she's still alive. She's incarcerated at Bandy Up Women's Prison, and then later moved to a maximum security prison. She's still doing life. I think she runs like the library or something like that there at the prison, and helps inmates learn how to read and stuff like that, which is good. Multiple parole reviews. So there, maybe he was given no parole, but she's had the parole reviews, but they've all been denied. And she's considered one of the most dangerous female offenders. I'm sure she is. So yeah, she's still alive, and if you want to write to her now. Speaking of writing, she used to write to Myra Hindley, which was the female side of the Moors murderers that I mentioned over in the UK. So they were pen pals. She was also pen pals with Eileen Warnos, which would be a good one to do here, even though she's a little more high profile. Might be interesting. We don't do that many females. There's been some good ones though. Maybe I need to do one next time. And so she was pen pals with Eileen Warnos as well. So they do correspond. It's kind of strange. It's like the Happy Face killer who wrote to the Long Island serial killer, and he also wrote to Koberger. But I don't know if Koberger responded or not. He didn't respond to Murder Metal Mayhem, so I don't know what else would be worth responding to if he's not going to respond to Murder Metal Mayhem. Just kidding. So definitely a disturbing case. Definitely shocked Australia and made a more awareness of hitchhiking is bad, right? We went through that here in the U.S. The 60s, into the 70s, it was rampant, okay? I used to hitchhike because I went like 3 years without a car. And I used to have to hitchhike a little bit, but I was doing it in like broad daylight and not, in a dangerous area. It was a, very nice area. So anyway, but it was always funny when I tried to hide my long hair because I thought maybe they wouldn't give me a ride. I wouldn't get a ride. But if I had my hair down and like my denim jacket on and stuff with all sorts of metal patches all over it, I would get a ride because they might recognize me from the band that I played in at the time. So it was always funny. I was better off just walking down the street with my hand out, no matter what I was wearing, and I'd get picked up eventually. But thankfully, nothing bad. Although there is a good story, maybe one day I'll tell you about me getting after a show with my first band, Sacred Oath, and we got snowed in and I had a hitchhike. But the catch is I had a hitchhike and we had to carry home this sledgehammer that we had borrowed from my friend's dad. So I'm walking down the street with a big sledgehammer, like like The Shining, and I'm trying to hitchhike. But we got a ride. I'll leave it there. I will finish that one day for you. You might like that one. And so yeah, that's the case of David and Catherine Birnie. Um, Let me see. See here this comment. Have you ever heard of a thing called the Serial Killer Project? I'm not sure If that's the one that I'm thinking of, is the one that Peter Vronsky runs, the one that he's been working with Cottingham, Richard Cottingham, the torso killer. I'm not sure if that's it. Yes. If not, no, I don't. I don't know who that would be. Let me see. Jethro. Whoa, where'd Jethro go? Jethro, my friend, was Warnos the one in Florida? Yes, she was the one that was pew pewing her Johns, and yeah, there was like 7 or 8 of them. I mean, it was quite a few, but yeah, that's where she was from. All right, I'm just going through the chat here. Yeah, people under the stairs. Yeah, I hear you, Justin. I hear you. Definitely does give that feel. Definitely gives that feel. Oh, here's my friend Juan Molina. Says this monster. Yeah, for sure. Both of them. Just awful human beings for doing this. One victim's too many, right? But this is, 4 people. Just absolutely horrendous. And the fifth one, boy, what a hero she was. 17 years old, man. That's amazing. Jethro says hide the hammer. Yeah, dude. Imagine. I had hair like down to here, and I'm walking down the street with this big sledgehammer with a leather jacket and a denim vest on. And I'm walking down the street with my buddy who was in the band. And yeah, we got picked up though. It was pretty hairy. It was pretty hairy. All right, I'm just going through seeing if I had any others I wanted to address here with you guys. Here's a good one. Teresa says, that's funny walking down the street with a sledgehammer hitchhiking. That's like driving around in a van after midnight looking to borrow a shovel. Yeah, definitely pretty wild. It was a good story, but at the time it was a little harrowing. It was a little harrowing. But looking here. All right. Well, I'm showing that yeah, we're at 7:40. We're doing really good on time. And you guys, I want to do something nice here, so let me do some free gifted memberships. So if you've got your settings where you can receive gifts, then I'm going to throw out 5 free memberships here in just a second. So let me do that while I can here. I was just looking at this earlier. I got 5. So here we go. YouTube picks them, not me. And we'll see who gets them. So here we go. All right. We got Ashley Shoemaker. We got Ikrel Lairs, Tracian Toke, Lost Faith, and Janie Thagurich. And I can't tell, Teresa, if you're in that too, because it looks like you are, but I thought that was 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. No, Teresa, I think you got it. So that's cool. If you didn't, let me know, because I'd have to help you with the settings. I just don't remember because I don't receive them. I only send them out. So I'm not sure, but maybe somebody in the chat would know how to guide you to change it. But to me, it looks like you got it for this one. So that's cool. So yeah, welcome new members. That's awesome. If you want to become a member, Always want to thank the Horns High Club and the Mayhem Squad for being members. That's awesome. Definitely helps the channel. And do live streams every Saturday, 4 p.m. Central. Normally, it's an open discussion. The last like two or three have been Idaho 4 because all the pictures and everything is going crazy. And I've been doing a lot of content on it. But this Saturday, we're going to go back to the open discussion because I would like to talk about some other cases, namely the Guthrie case. That's hot right now, of course. And also some other updates on some other cases that I've been following. I just got to pull it all together. But I'm sure we'll touch on something Idaho 4. It's just hard not to. But that's what's up. And with that, let me go back to the chat. So somebody, Lola Getz says, "Hey Pete, hope you are well and counts are good. You and our favorite convict have been through hell." Yeah, for sure. We definitely have. We definitely have been through a lot individually, and it's phew, health issues are just the worst. And like I didn't plan to get necrotizing fasciitis. I didn't even know what it was when they told me I had it. So, so yeah, I mean, those things happen. You just have nothing else you could do but just deal with it. But but does anybody else want to talk about anything, whether it's the Birnie case or if you want to talk about any other serial killers or true crime? I'm up for whatever you guys want to talk about. So that's what I like about doing these is we get into some interesting discussions. But that Guthrie case, I've been kind of putting my toe in the water on it. Like, should I, shouldn't I? Because I figured as soon as I do a video, they're going to solve it. And not that that would be a bad thing, but I've been following it, so I know what's going on. So I definitely, at this point, want to do one. So let's see here. Renaud says, "Will you talk about the Alexander Brothers case?" I'm not sure about that case. I've never heard of that before. I'd have to do a little bit of research on it to talk about it. Um, Justin says, "Do you know the story of Ronert the doll? It inspired Child's Play." There was one serial killer we did that um, took like infants and made them like corpses and made them look like dolls. It was pretty disturbing. And then lifelike dolls too, like females, and they were like in his house, like they were like his girlfriend. It was really weird stuff. But I'm not sure if we're talking about the same thing. Robert the doll. I'll have to take a look at that. Can you make a note of that, Jenny, please? Robert the doll. Um, so why don't you or anyone try to interview Koberger? That's a good one. I tried back when he was in Latah County. I wrote to him. I kept it to myself because I thought, wow, wouldn't that be crazy if I got contacted? And I also did the same with Richard Allen in the Delphi case. I wrote to him. His was a little bit trickier to get to him, but I don't even know if it ever reached him. I also don't know if Koberger ever got my letter because he never answered me. I didn't really expect him to because he'd been so silent through the whole thing that I didn't know if he would even get letters, but I thought at the county he might be getting letters. I don't know. So, Alicia, good to see you here. BK is in solitary. Yeah. But does that mean they can't get mail in solitary? I don't know about that. Um, but yeah, so when he was in Latah County, I wrote to him, and I told him right in the beginning who I was and what I did because I didn't want him to think I was trying to be slick, you know. And I just told him, you know, I'll keep everything to myself. If you want me to go public with it, I will. I just want you to know that there's a lot of people out here that think that, you know, you should be given a fair chance and that you're not being given a fair chance. I didn't say I thought he wasn't guilty. I just said, you know, think you should be given a fair shake and you're not. And I just wanted you to know that, you know. And by the way, I, you know, do this podcast, I do, you know, this, and I'm also a writer. So if you're ever interested in writing a book or something like that about your story, I'd be all about, you know, working with you. And I also opened the letter with that we had a common friend, which is Catherine Ramsland, which was his professor who I interviewed twice for the podcast. So I thought that was my open was we have a common friend in Catherine Ramsland. I thought that would get his attention, you know. But again, never answered me. So, but that would have been crazy. I remember checking the mail like, oh man, this might be the day I get the letter from Koberger. So he hasn't done any interviews with anybody. I don't think he plans to, you know. It's definitely sucks, you know, because like we're all like wanting some answers, you know. So so Teresa says, yeah, I don't know what the heck with that. That missing Guthrie case, mom in the Guthrie case, Nancy Guthrie. Yeah. I honestly, from looking at the picture of the guy with the mask where he's putting his hand up over the Ring camera or the Google Nest camera, to me, it looks like the son in law, to be honest with you. The guy that's in the band, which is kind of funny. They said it was a metal band, but I went and listened to it. No, just no. Just like the Jonathan Gerlach, like, no, that's not metal. Sorry. But it's like a punk type thing, which is nothing against punk. I'm just saying, like, they had heard it was like death metal. So I was expecting to hear like guttural, like Cannibal Corpse vocals, and it was nothing like that. It sounded like 90s, you know, punk pop kind of music, which, you know, some people dig that. But I think it looks like him. I mean, the eyes, definitely, you know, you could see a fair amount of the skin around the eyes, and you could see over here, whereas his beard was in the mask, you could see that top part of the beard. Now, obviously, a lot of people have goatees. I'm just saying that it adds up. I would like to see if I'm sure the FBI has probably already figured out how tall he is by looking at him on the camera and compare it to that son-in-law, and might have some explaining to do, especially if the shoes, like I couldn't tell what kind of like sneakers or what he was wearing on his, you know, for shoes. But that could be a way to figure out who it is, you know, to see if he's wearing a pair of shoes that he wears, you know. I mean, I think that he thought he was getting the camera knocked off the you know, and stealing the camera, that he was going to be safe because she didn't have a subscription. But they got it from Google, you know, so that's how they got those pictures. So pretty amazing. And yeah, like Alicia says here, oh, oh, that's Jethro Troll. I think it might be someone that knows the son-in-law. That's possible. That's possible. They were talking about one of the this thing. I'm trying to get on the Alicia's comment. Here we go. Alicia says, looks like him, and he was the one that dropped Nancy off. Yeah, exactly. He was the one that dropped her off. So, very, very interesting. But that's my hunch because they've already been back to their house. Him and his wife, who's Savannah's sister, Annie, they've already been back to her house. They were taking pictures in the garage. So, I mean, who knows? You know, they might already be onto this one. You know, I don't know. And they all looked odd in those videos. I mean, who wouldn't be? With your mom missing, it's horrible. But that sister Annie just had a very strange look on her face. And now that I see this picture with the potential of maybe it being him, her husband. I mean, does she know something? And she's got to go through the motions with her sister and brother on a can. I mean, wow. I hope that's not the case. It's just terrible. But yeah, stuff is popping now, and you know, yeah, it's feast or famine with true crime stuff. You can go a long drought, nothing really interesting. There's always cases, but you try to get in, and every time I try to do anything non-Idaho 4, I hardly get any people to watch it. So it's frustrating. It's very frustrating. Very, very frustrating because, yeah, you want to be able to, cover them all. But if I'm going to spend all this time doing videos on, Nick Reiner and Gerlach and some of these other ones and get eight or 900 views, and then I do an Idaho 4 one and I get 20 or 30,000, it's crazy. So the difference is just remarkable. But I know that my base was built on Idaho 4 cases, videos. So I've got over 200 of them in my playlist. So there's a lot of them. Yeah, my home healthcare worker, her husband is like obsessed with Murder Metal Mayhem. So if you're watching Bradley, that's awesome, dude. But he went all the way back to the beginning and binged the whole thing. Now, I've never met the guy in person, but I'm wondering how many follicles of hair he lost, if he lost any weight, like he just is so disturbed by hearing me go on and on about all these cases, especially Idaho 4. But anyway, no, he binged. He watched them all. He says he's seen every one of them. I'm just like, man, that's a lot of listening to me go on and on. The sister might be a Chapin. That's good. That's messed up. But I like it, Jethro. I like it. It's very messed up. That's got to be why you like this channel, because my dark sense of humor. Hang on one second, guys. Um, my dark sense of humor for sure. Ah, anybody else have anything they want to? So, do you guys want to hear this story about the hitchhiking with the sledgehammer? All right, let's do it. So, we played a show with my old band back in like '86, I think, and in this town, Bethel, Connecticut. And we had this show at this Masonic temple we used to rent out. And so we had a packed house, made some money. And at the time, I didn't have a car. So we had like friends with cars and trucks hauling equipment and trying to, help out. And the drummer was, he had like a station wagon. We were just trying to get all the gear out of there. And I was responsible to make sure the place was clean. We rented the basement out, swept out the basement, and then I had to return the key the next day to the lodge. And we always had to have a rent-a-cop out there to keep people cool. So I got him paid. Everything was good, and so but I didn't have a car. So I heard I heard a door shut, and I went outside, and the car speeds off, and my friend that was in my band, he was there without a car. So the two of us are stuck here with no car, and it's like a blizzard. So I'm like, man, I only had this is back. This shows how old I am. I had a dime because that was back when phones were just a dime, and I put the dime in, and I called my apartment, of course, before cell phones, and I said. Hey, there was a bunch of people at my apartment. Of course, they were all drinking and everything. And I said, hey, could somebody come pick us up? We're stuck here at the Masonic Lodge. Well, my roommate, he was hammered, so he couldn't do it. And there were a couple other people there that were drinking, but the one person that wasn't just refused to come get me. And so I was pretty pissed off. So I just said, just make sure he's there when I get there. And I slammed the phone down. And so I said, we're going to have to hitchhike. And so as we're leaving, we saw the sledgehammer there that his dad let us borrow to hammer in the sign out front that said, show tonight here, And he's like, you guys got to bring this back. I just bought it. So I was the bigger of the two, so I was like, I'll carry the damn thing. So what I did, I made the decision, instead of carrying it like Shining style, I put the handle up my sleeve of my coat, and I held the hammer in my hand. And I thought to myself, if somebody sees that, they're gonna really think like I'm up to no good, right? But at the same time, if I'm carrying it like The Shining, like nobody's picking this up. I mean, forget it. So I did that. I put it in my sleeve. We get picked up right away, which was cool. It was this guy. We both sat in the back seat, and he's like, "Oh, where are you going?" So I told him where to go. He had to go to this college and there's a T at the road where this college was. Everybody in town knows where this college is. And I needed him to make a left at the T. Well, he makes a right at the T, and he knew he was going wrong because I said, "Dude, you went the wrong way," and he didn't say anything. And then he starts talking about God and all this, like, I don't know what kind of band you guys are playing in, but you really need to get with God and all this stuff. And I look over at my buddy and I'm like, man, we got to bail because this is not cool. So as soon as he got to the next light, we bailed out of the car and just started jogging away from him toward where I lived, which was a good like 2 miles away. And again, this is like a blizzard. So we're walking down the sidewalk and somebody drives by and says something to us, like screams something, and throws this wine bottle, like a big empty wine bottle, at us, and it smashed very close to our heads on this telephone pole. And I was just like, I was just fit to be tied. I mean, all I could think about is this fool that wouldn't come get us. And I'm just like, this is enough. Like, I don't know how much more I could take. I just want to get home and just chill. So we get to the apartment and I come walking in, and of course I'm drenched and I'm looking like I'm gonna like murder somebody. Thankfully, the guy that was not willing to come get me was advised to leave. And so he left. So he was not there when I got there. So everything was cool. Everything was cool. But the sledgehammer, yeah, I just saw Donna says the sledgehammer was needed that night. It almost was, right? Because I'll tell you what, if that dude would have tried anything, he would have got that sledgehammer to the side of the head, like right now. But thankfully, we were able to bail. That would have sucked if he would have pulled like an Ed Kemper and had the doors where they couldn't open from the inside. That would have been messed up. And then we would have been battling with the sledgehammer. But who knows what he might have had on him? So it could have been real hairy. But and that's not why. I know people in the beginning of the channel were oh you're against religion because of the 666 seconds of murder videos, and you guys just knew I was goofing around, and people took it so seriously. But and that experience doesn't necessarily like make me opposed to religion. It's just when you're a fanatic like that, that's just scary no matter what. No matter what you're a fanatic about, that's scary stuff, when you act like that. So yes, I was kidnapped. Alicia was kidnapped, but he's just lucky those doors opened because yeah, we would have just beat that dude to death. Yeah, Teresa says that's frightening right there and starts talking religion. Yeah, because he didn't talk about religion until he made the wrong turn. And I told him to turn around, and he started doing that. And he was heading out of town. So I don't know where the hell he was thinking we were going. But yeah, that was. Look at somebody's mentioning a song, and I couldn't see what song you're talking about. Yeah, the sledgehammer thing definitely sounds like a Cannibal Corpse song. You know, they got the song "Hatchet to the Head," "Sledgehammer to the Head." But yeah, that's the story. It wasn't too long of a story. I've told that on the podcast before. But I thought you guys have been hanging tough with me tonight. Had a little technical issues at the at the very beginning, but we got it figured out. Anybody else have anything they want to bring up? We got about 10 minutes left. I told you I'd stay till 8:15 if you guys wanted to talk about more stuff, or if you got to go. And I got a new video coming out. Members got it early, but the rest of you, 8:30, it comes out. It's about the text messages between Dylan and Bethany. Because I got thinking today, that's scary, I know, but I got thinking today about the timeline. And I know not everybody believes, but I think, I've been saying this repeatedly, that the murders happened between 2 and 3. A little bit after 2, 2:10, 2:15. Up. We heard the scream at 2:27, the screams at 2:40 and 2:47 and all that, right? So that's when it happened, in my opinion. So then I got thinking, well, what about the text messages between Dylan and Bethany? I mean, their text messages were going on at the 4 o'clock hour. So if the murders happened in, you know, if the murders happened 2 hours earlier, then what were they doing? Like, why were they texting each other about, I'm scared, I'm this, I'm that? Like, it doesn't make any sense, right? So I come to the decision that that either means that the timeline was dictated by their ruse of making it look like they were texting each other. I mean, they really were. Let's just say one option is they really were texting each other at 4 o'clock to make it look like that's when it all happened. I mean, they were already playing games with phones, right? They were ordering DoorDash. I think they were calling Jack. Like, there was all kinds of shenanigans going on with phones. So I wouldn't put it past them, okay? So either that's what happened, and then the cops used that as their guideline. I don't buy that it was the car. I think that was it. And that's what they built the PCA around, was the times that they were doing this on the phones. Either that, or they were texting at some point in the night, we don't know when, and the timestamps are screwed with. I wouldn't put it past them. I mean, ISP did that up in that case of the chiropractor up in Bonner's Ferry. They fictitiously screwed with timestamps on video, got the guy to think his truck was at the murder scene when it wasn't. So I wouldn't put it past them. I wouldn't. So maybe that's what happened. Maybe the texts that we saw and the times and everything were fictitious to fit their timeline. Or somebody, and the third option I think would be somebody running the show, whoever that was, told them you're going to text each other from and that's how they were told. They were told when to do it. Maybe by the police, if there were any police involved with this. I don't want to get all black helicopter, but if you believe that those murders happened at 2:20, start the screaming at 2:27, then there's got to be some give there, because what the 4 a.m. conversation doesn't make any sense if it happened 2 hours after the murders were done. That's just my thing. But that's what the video's about. That's dropping at 8:30. So yeah, check that out. Check that out. Let's see. Teresa says, yeah, their text messages are probably just to change the timeline. Yeah, it's very possible, that they were like, oh, yeah, we were texting each other. Like they told them that because they wanted them to look, because they wanted to back up the stupid 4 a.m. story that Dylan was trying to tell them when they got there. So that's very possible. That's why I could totally see him in the living room at 4 o'clock. Okay, I'm going to text you and say I'm freaking out. And then, because there were minutes between these. It wasn't like a flurry of text messages, right? So it would have been very easy to go, all right, go ahead and send me a message back and let's say this. All right. That's how it could have been done. They could have been talking to somebody else with like some burner phone. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it could be like a Columbo thing with Dylan. She comes across as a dumbass, but maybe she did have, a little bit more there, or maybe she was just directed to do it that way. I don't know, you know. But all right, let's see here. We got anybody else? All right, anybody else got anything they want to say? Well, next week, um, I haven't decided yet who I want to do next week. I think we might need to go up to Canada. I'm gonna have to get a hold of my friend Shane and see if he wants to come on with me next week, do some Canadian case, which would be fun. I know we just did David and Catherine Birnie, so we're not going to do Ken and Barbie, but eventually we'll do Ken and Barbie. But there's all kinds of great Canadian cases. Might be interesting to do the Vince Lee story, which was the bus that the guy on the bus just completely freaked out and was like had a Rambo like K-bar style knife and was going nuts on people on the bus and then started cannibalizing them. Well, the bus was on the side of the road surrounded by police and he's like cutting parts off people and eating them. Yeah, it's pretty messed up. But that guy's name is Vince Lee, L.I., the last name, if you want to check it out before. So maybe we'll do Vince Lee. I'll have to check with Shane, though, see if he's available. I like to have him on the Canadian cases with his accent. It's just too good. So, all right, guys. Well, Saturday I'll be live on Valentine's Day. How about that? What better way to spend your Valentine's Day afternoon than with Murder Metal Mayhem? A little gore, a little murder. It'll be fun. We'll do a 90-minute 4 p.m. Central on Saturday, and we'll talk a variety of cases. So if you've got any that you want to, you know, uh, talk about, bring it with you, and let's. Yeah, Teresa. Yeah, the bus one. Yeah, it was a wild one. Yeah, that was the first time we ever had Shane on the podcast. Was that episode because he suggested it because it happened right by his parents' house. Like it was on the highway, so it wasn't like in the front yard, but it was close to where his parents lived. So he got a hold of me about it, and I was like, "Why don't you come on? Why don't you come on and talk about it with us?" So he did, and that's like kind of how we met each other. And then he did countless episodes with us anytime we did Canadian. He even did some other ones like Lizzie Borden. We did some good ones with Shane, but a lot of fun. All right, guys. Well, thanks again for putting up with the hiccups at the beginning. Hopefully, I made it up to you with the sledgehammer story. And you have to go tell some people about that one. And we'll see you on Saturday, hopefully. And if not, next Tuesday, we'll be back doing another serial killer story hour.